All right, today we're tackling a concept that is, frankly, one of the weirdest, but also one of the most powerful ideas in the entire business world. We're talking about how a company, a business, can legally become its own person, totally separate from the people who actually run it.
But let's start with a brain teaser that sounds like it makes zero sense. Can you sell something that you already own to yourself? I mean, it sounds completely absurd, right? Well, stick with me, because in the world of business law, the answer is a mind-bending yes, and the story of how that's possible is pretty amazing.
So, to understand this, we need to pull back the curtain on a company's secret identity. This is a core principle, a foundational idea that honestly changes everything about how we think about business. Okay, here's the big idea. It's called separate legal personality. Now, what on earth does that mean? Well, when you legally form a company, the law essentially creates a new, artificial person. It's not a person made of flesh and blood, obviously, but in the eyes of the law, it can do a lot of the same things. It can own buildings, it can take out loans, it can even be sued, all in its own name. Now, this idea didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was actually cemented in a huge landmark court case way back in the 1890s, and it literally pitted a single man against the company that he himself created.
So, let me introduce you to a guy named Mr. Solomon. He was a successful leather merchant, what you'd call a sole trader, meaning his business and his personal finances were all mixed together. Then, in 1892, he decides to form a proper company, Salomon & Co. Ltd. And this is where he does that seemingly impossible thing. He sells his own business to his new company. In return, the company, this new legal person, pays him with company shares and a big secured IOU. But then, things go south. The business hits hard times, and the company goes bankrupt.
And this, right here, is the million-dollar question. Well, the 10,000-pound question in this case. The company is broke. It owes money to other businesses, to creditors. So who has to pay them back? Is it Mr. Salomon himself? Or is it the company that now technically doesn't have any money? Well, the court's decision was an absolute bombshell. They ruled that Mr. Aaron Salomon, the man, and Salomon & Co. Ltd., the company, were two entirely different legal beings. The company owned the assets, and so the company owed the debts, not him. He was just an owner, a shareholder. The debts belonged to that artificial person, not the real one. It was a huge deal. And this decision from the Salomon case created this incredibly powerful legal idea, one that is truly the foundation of modern business. And it's often described with a really fitting metaphor. That legal separation is known as the corporate veil. You could almost picture it, right? It's like an invisible shield, a protective veil that drops down between a company and its owners, separating their fortunes. So when you ask the question, what really protects a business owner if their company fails? The answer is a direct result of this powerful veil. And that result is called limited liability. This is the superpower that the corporate veil grants. It means that if you invest in a company and it goes belly up, the most you can possibly lose is the money you put into it. Creditors can't come after your house, your car, or your savings. Your personal assets are safe. Your liability is limited. Now, you might be thinking, this is just a get-out-of-jail-free card, but it's so much more than that. This idea is essential for a healthy economy. Think about it. It encourages people to take a chance, to be entrepreneurs, to start new businesses without the terrifying fear of losing everything they own. It also means the company itself is stable. It can outlive its original owners, it can own property, and people can join or leave without the whole thing collapsing. But of course, anytime you have a powerful shield, there's always the chance that someone might try to abuse it. What happens when someone uses this veil not to encourage business, but to commit fraud or hide from their responsibilities? Well, in those really specific, exceptional cases, the courts have a sort of nuclear option. They can decide to pierce the corporate veil. This means they'll just ignore the company's separate personality for a moment and hold the owners directly responsible. But, and this is a huge but, they hate doing this. They are extremely reluctant to pierce that veil because the whole system of encouraging business and investment depends on that veil being strong and reliable. So let's look at how this plays out today. We're going to jump to a much more recent case, a high-stakes divorce from 2013 that put this century-old principle to the ultimate test. So here's the situation. A very wealthy oil trader, Mr. Prest, owned a bunch of super valuable properties through his companies. When he and his wife were getting divorced, his argument was basically, hey, those properties aren't mine to give you, they belong to my companies. His wife's argument was, come on, you're just using the company structure to hide your assets from me.
So the court had this massive dilemma. Do they pierce the veil or do they let him get away with it? And their solution was honestly pretty genius. They said, okay, Mr. Prest, you're right. The veil stands. But we find that your companies are just holding these properties on trust for you, the real owner.
And this is the really crucial part. The Supreme Court found a clever way to get to a fair result without actually having to pierce the veil. They used a totally different area of law, trust law, to get the job done. And what this shows is just how incredibly important and protected that core principle of a company being its own person really is, even when it feels like it's creating an unjust situation. Which leaves us with this final big question to think about. Is the corporate veil a vital pillar of modern capitalism, something that fuels innovation and risk-taking? Or is it just a convenient loophole, an artificial shield that, at the end of the day, can be used to hide the truth? As we've seen, the answer isn't so simple.